Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. How you guys doing? Happy Thursday to all of y'all out there. Hope you're having a wonderful week as it's slowly drifting by. I don't know, maybe it's going quick for you. Maybe it's going slow. I don't know. However it's going for you, I hope it's going wonderful. And I know it's been a good couple of days here. I don't know. I got no complaints, so it's like I just thought we'd better cover that. Yeah, everything's going groovy. We got a great show ahead of us tonight. We're going to talk about the skinwalkers again tonight because it's the Cryptid Corner. It's that version of the night terrors that's kind of rolled around. I look back at the schedule and realized I did 2 in a row of UFO encounters, and I skipped moving ahead, but it worked out okay because it gives us a great segue to go over the material we didn't get time for last night, which was incredible material. These encounters with the skinwalkers are absolutely terrifying. They're absolutely horrifying stuff, and I don't know, it's literally stuff right out of the nightmares. These supernatural, weird, bizarre creatures. You know, it really makes me think. Like, I'd rather bump into a Bigfoot or a Dogman than I would one of these things, because it's like they have a diabolical intelligence. Like they just want to wreck your world, whatever that evil is, and it's just horrifying. At least if you see a Bigfoot, you think, well, most of the time people see Bigfoot and Bigfoot just goes, doesn't really want to be around you, doesn't want to hang out or trade recipes or anything. They just want you to go away. And so they go away. And 90% of the time, whatever. Dogman, they'll get up in your face, but generally they just never really attack. There might be some rare examples out there of that having happened, but allegedly they don't attack much either. So between Bigfoot and Dogman, yeah, they're much more imposing and horrifying, but doesn't seem like they want to go out of their way to wreck your world. But these skinwalkers, they just seem evil. And no, granted, I'm taking it by virtue of a lot of anecdotal stories. But people are terrified when they see them, and that horrifying glowing red eyes with the sickly smile, that creepiness. So we're going to go through that. And don't forget, at the end of the night tonight, folks, we'll have the trail cam terrors as well. Another classic one is up on deck tonight, and it's a weird one. I don't know. Again, for most of these, I forgot to connect the phone, so I'm just going to do that now as I talk. But for the most part, the trail cams, it's almost impossible to get any verification on anything with them. They've just been submitted. They're out there. They've been in the wilds of the internet for years and years and years, and they're creepy and weird, but how much of it can you really take for gospel? Probably not much, but they're interesting to look at anyway, because I believe there's maybe a few legitimate ones out there, and maybe ones that we've covered. So we'll get into that and see what you guys think. But that'll be on the tail end of the show. So the phone lines are now connected. So if you want to call in and be a part of tonight's journey, you're welcome to. And the phone number is 720-923-0500. Again, 0500. I don't know. Hand signs help. I don't know. I just entertain myself usually. So when I get all dorky, it's just me. It's just me entertaining me. Hi, Brent and Portal family weirdos. Hi, Ethan. How you doing? Glad you guys are warming up there. And great to see all you guys coming in. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the journey. So I guess that's everything on the front end, folks. So I hope you're ready, because it's time for bed. All right, folks, welcome back, and a special hello and welcome to a good friend of the show for a long time, Mr. Kerry Arnold of Bigfoot Odyssey's in the chat room there. And if you're not familiar with Bigfoot Odyssey, and you like to hear about Bigfoot and some of the researchers out there getting into investigating and what they're finding and stuff. And Carrie's an investigator as well, and puts together expeditions and stuff and goes out there. So if you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it. You're gonna love the show. Some great discussion, great guests. Some of the most incredible people in the Bigfoot world are coming on there and talking about the things they've seen, experienced, things they found. It's just incredible. So definitely check it out. Again, this Friday, tomorrow, Don and I are going over to Spokane, which is about an hour and a half drive, roughly, to go to the studios where they film Bigfoot Today. And we're heading over there tomorrow to go meet Ken Gerhardt, who's going to be in the studio over there. And I don't know if I'm going to, I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk to him and stuff, but I don't know, what we'll get to or what we won't get to or what my role in it will be. But it's going to be a great time. And if you haven't checked out Bigfoot Today, definitely check it out. Ken Gerhardt's a cryptozoologist, written tons of books. He's been on so many TV shows talking about the world of cryptids and cryptozoology. And he's literally been all over the world researching. And it's just an incredibly interesting guy. So it's going to be a lot of fun to get together and meet him tomorrow. And he will also be appearing at the Medellin Falls Bigfoot Festival, which is happening June 19th and 20th, which we'll also be going to, as will, was announced today, Adam Davies is going to be emceeing the whole event. Bob Gimlin's going to be there talking, Ken Gerhardt. God, there's more people, but I'm drawing a blank right now because it's names, and names are my dyslexia. If I don't have them written down right in front of me, I'm screwed. But there's going to be so many people there. There's going to be amazing events as well. So there's speaking engagements. Now, full disclosure, the speaking engagements, as far as I understand, are completely sold out. But in the whole community of Medellin Falls, they're setting aside the whole community. And it's a small, beautiful little town. It's like, I guess they filmed some movies there too, like I don't know if it's The Postman Rings Twice or whatever. It was filmed there, or some movies were filmed there. It's just picturesque and beautiful. But the whole community is basically opening up for this festival, and there's going to be there's a community center there that the speaking engagements will be happening in, and they're going to have a bunch of canopies and tents outside where all the speakers are going to be hanging out. And if you didn't get into the speaking engagement, you can still have a chance to meet these people and talk to them and to do some of the activities that will be set up, as well as the local movie theater will be showcasing and displaying absolutely free several different Bigfoot movies. And this is to do with some of the research movies that are out there in documentaries. And you'll have to look at the event itself for specifics on which ones, but they're just going, they're really going no holds barred on this thing. So if you can get out there and support it, definitely do that. Again, look up on Facebook, go to Extreme Expeditions Northwest LLC. Look for an Extreme Expeditions Northwest LLC. Stephen Majors is the gentleman spearheading the effort, and they'll have links and information for you there that you can check out if you can make that trip. And it's in Medellin Falls, Washington on June 19th and 20th. So if you can, be there. Don and I will be there. Can't kick us out of there. Maybe they could, but we're not going to try and see what it takes. So anyway, let's get busy. Got a lot of material to get through tonight. Let's see, where's my stuff? I had a bunch of stuff. Oh, that's going to be good on Friday. I got a bunch of cool stories pulled up for Friday. That should be a lot of fun, depending on where we get to. But this is an article we've been going through for the past, last night we started on it, and we're at number 11 out of 19. These are amazing stories. Apparently, firsthand witnesses of the skinwalkers. Again, they're sourced. The source is justforspooks.com. And it's 19 terrifying experiences with the skinwalkers. And really, really creepy. The ones we went over last night were really disturbing. So, listen at your own risk. I don't know. They say that just by talking about skinwalkers, you draw them to you. And so I guess I'm kind of rolling the dice here as a manner of speaking. Just a sec. I don't know what's going on. I thought the door just knocked. Did you hear the door knock? But at any rate, let's see what's going on. Now I'm all distracted. Like, what was that all about? Okay, well, maybe something just fell. So, what the hell was I saying? I forgot, but let's get into some stories. That's just jarred me right out of the pocket. What's that? You'd think I'd be used to that here in the studio, but nope. Oh, you can draw them to you. That's what I was talking about. And you know, I don't know whether there's anything to that or not. But there's one other region of paranormal study that they say the same things. That if you mention them, they will find you, and that is demons. If you name a demon, that you are actually summoning it to you or making it aware of you. And so maybe there's something to that. And maybe that explains the nature of these things a little bit too. Maybe they really are a demonic kind of power. I don't know. But anyway, that's where I was meaning to go with this. Sorry. I'm not used to real-time interruptions. But anyway, let's get to it. This is the article we're going to. And this is, again, just for spooks.com. 19 terrifying experiences with the skinwalkers. There we go. Took an antihistamine. Now I'm bone dry. Jesus. Ugh. All right. So it feels like I'm chewing on cobwebs here. But let's get to it. This is number 11 out of 19. It says, this is a true story, so it might be a little dull. I grew up in a town in the Gulf of Mexico. Our neighborhood was next to a huge field. On the other side of the field, the Gulf itself. Not extremely relevant, just for setting. My childhood home was laid out where my bedroom and parents' bedroom were on opposite sides of the living room, which is where the front door was. Well, I normally stayed up late, much later than my parents, and they didn't mind much as I didn't get into much trouble and just playing video games all night. I'd fallen asleep playing Super Mario RPG on SNES, mid-battle and all, and when I wake up to my dad calling me into the living room. So I got up and walked out of my room, and every light in the house was off. I called out, "Dad?" And he called me again from the living room. I don't recall the exact verbiage used, but he called me by name and was calling me to him. The living room was completely empty, not a single light on. I stood there with my eyes peering around the room, which was dimly lit from a nearby streetlight seeping in through the blinds. "Dad?" Again, he calls out to me. This time, though, his voice came from beyond the front door. In retrospect, of course, something was wrong, but as a young boy being called out to the middle of the night by their father's voice, the first thing I thought was that obviously he needed my help for some reason. I approached the front door, slowly, very slowly, partially out of confusion, but partially out of grogginess. As I approached, my dad called to me again, and then again and again, and each time calling, beckoning in a friendly but urgent tone. Well, I was within reach of the doorknob. I stood there, and at this point, I felt like something was a little off. Maybe I was sleepwalking, or I caught some vapor of sleep or something. I paused for a few seconds to really drink in my surroundings, feel my environment, and this gave me time to truly take in the details. I was perceptive. I was awake. There was no mistaking it. "Dad?" Silence. "Dad?" And then I heard him once more, stern this time, like he was when I was in trouble. "Wouldn't you get out here now?" Oh no, this is serious, I think to myself. I reach for the door. "Wouldn't you? What are you doing?" It was my mother right behind me. Her voice, in contrast to everything I was feeling in that moment, terrified me. It was the most startled I had been in my life. But that record wouldn't last long. "Dad's outside calling me. I think he needs me," was my reply to her inquiry. "Dad's in the bedroom asleep. Were you dreaming it?" This phrase is one of the most vivid memories. Just thinking about it has me covered in chills. Record shattered. This was by far the most terrifying single moment in my life. Now, no, I know for a fact I wasn't dreaming. I don't sleepwalk, and I remember waking up. I remember it very clearly because I had fallen asleep during a battle in Super Mario RPG, and then I woke back up. Mallow was the only person left standing in my party, and then right after that was when I had first heard something luring me outside. Maybe that's what woke me up in the first place. The active fear didn't last long, surprisingly. I had no idea what could have been out there, but the thought of what it could have been depressed me. I had no response to the bombshell my mother had just dropped on me. I was emotionally exhausted by fear, that sickly, exhausting feeling that you get when you realize or receive absolutely terrible news. I simply muttered goodnight to her and shuffled back to my room and laid there on the floor until I passed out from emotional exhaustion. I've never encountered anything like this since. This seems like the place to share this story without instantly being told that I was just sleepwalking, or given that I have not one other single instance of known sleepwalking. This turned out longer than I expected, and I feel very mixed at having immortalized these words. Essentially, part of me feels good to share it to a receptive audience, but the other part of me feels like I'm just stirring something up. Again, this is 100% factual. I didn't enhance any details. I've told this story for 20 years now, the exact same way. It's one of the clearest memories I have from my childhood. And I, of course, don't know if it was a skinwalker, goatman, shapeshifter. I have no idea what it was. All I know is that it was something, and it almost tricked me. Yeah, that's horrible. And that's the dark part of this stuff. That's the really dark part of all of this. It tricks you. What do they want with you? I don't know. I mean, do they just want to tear people up? Is that what it is? Or do they want to, suck your soul out? Or what is it? I don't know. I don't know what they do. But I imagine it's not good. Whatever it is, it's not good, folks. I think we can be pretty safely assuming that. So number 12 on the list is... let's see, how long is this one? See, these are really pretty long. They're pretty well developed stories. So it's not just a little mini paragraph thought. It's like truly a story. Excuse me. Hold on. No, Mom, I didn't get new Mucinex yet. All right, so my family moved to rural Pennsylvania when I was 4. And I was immediately tranced with living in the country with several acres of woods behind us, and the house seemed huge to me at the time. However, as a kid, I was always sensitive to spirits and energy, and there were definitely some creepy things going on in the house. So my parents noticed that I stayed with our dog, Bambi, a lot. He was a small sheepdog and my adventure buddy, and when we went walking in the woods, in case you're questioning my parents, they trusted me, as young as age 7, to walk around alone as long as I was with my dog, as he was very protective of me. And my dad would give me a cell phone to carry with me in case I needed any help. Up until I was about 15, I spent a lot of time alone by choice. After school, I'd be home at 3:20 in grade school and eat lunch immediately, take Bambi out to the woods, and we'd explore the surrounding forest and fields and meadows and ponds together, and he was always right by my side. And he seemed really attuned to the spiritual stuff, too. Example, if I felt something was in the house, he'd bark at it or whine, or I'd watch him follow it around. Usually he'd pick up on the presence of something at the same time that I would. Anyway, from my backyard to the left, there's a small strip of trees. And in the fall and winter, when the branches are bare, you can see the field next door, which is about 300 yards from my house itself. There was a big plane shed up there, kind of a runway where my neighbor would fly his biplanes off of. What's kind of important to the story is that I have no neighbors for a mile in every direction. It was pretty rare to see any kind of people in the surrounding properties unless it was my neighbor haying the fields in the summer. But one day in early fall, I'd been tromping through the woods with Bambi for several hours. I let him run off leash most of the time, but he would only run ahead about 20 feet, and he kept turning around to check that I was still there. If I lost sight of him, he'd retrace his steps and find me again. And that day I got caught up in whittling something, so Bambi ran off a little bit, and I suddenly realized that I was alone. Suddenly there was a lot of crashing deeper in the woods, and I heard Bambi's alarm bark and a lot of yelping, and then some screeching. Raccoons and gophers make a really scary distress sound, so I figured that was it. So I called Bambi, and he popped out of some brush covered in pickers, and since I was spooked, I ran right back home with him. Right as I got to the back door, I stopped to catch my breath, and Bambi and I were just standing there when I spotted someone standing on the very edge of the runway. It ran along the higher end of the field, and there was a steep drop to the edge of the hill at the very end of it. They didn't appear to be wearing anything distinctive, but even in the dusk, I could see that they appeared completely black, or everything about them was very shadowy and dark. This is the part that gives me shivers now. They were standing facing off of the runway, and then I saw them hunch over, then slowly raise their head and yell, "Bambi," in the same high voice I would use to call him. They had the same vocal inflection as me too, but it sounded like they were trying really hard to sound like me. Next to me, Bambi tucked his tail under, lowered his head, and growled softly. They called again, but this time it sounded like they were losing their voice, as if they'd been calling for a while. In my 8-year-old logic, I assumed that someone was trying to steal my dog, but why would they stand in the middle of the field and be obvious about it? When I told my parents about it that night, they just dismissed my story. The next day I went to my cousin's house, 2 miles up the road, and my uncle told me about an animal he saw the night before that he was trying to identify. He said it looked like an emaciated cow sprinting across the bridge over the creek, which is about 300 yards from the runway. And also since then, anyone who's been at my house has always been uneasy around the creek and the plane shed runway, whether or not they're interested at all in the paranormal. I know that a lot of death happens in nature, but I've also found several goats ripped up in the field. The nearest house with any amount of goats or farm animals is nearly 4 miles away. And a lot of unexplained things have happened up there. Wow. So they're a mimic too. That mimicry comes up in a lot. It comes up in Sasquatch. I don't know what else mimics, but apparently skinwalkers mimic as well. If that was indeed a skinwalker. Now, it was never really identified, but what else would do it? It didn't look like a Bigfoot. It didn't look like a dog man. It looked like a man. But then somebody saw an emaciated cow-looking thing loping over a bridge. Eesh, I don't know. Creepy stuff, folks. Just incredibly creepy. All right, this is number 13. My family and I spent close to a decade on the Navajo Reservation in northern Arizona. Perhaps that's where my love of the paranormal began. There's some kind of tangible magic amongst a group of people connected to the earth in a way I feel the majority of white folk have forgotten. Spending my formative years amongst the Navajo, Hopi, and Apache, I found a respect for the older ways and for the importance of legend in our everyday lives and why having a clan and tribe meant something. I, as a white child, could appreciate but never really understand. The story I tell you is not out of a desire to get a reaction, but to share a beautiful experience and perhaps provoke a respect for what is so casually labeled as monsters. Oh, maybe we're going to get a they're good thing. Okay, I'm good. I'm ready. I grew up in an incredibly abusive home. My mother was a wreck. My guardian grandmother worked for a tribal school system, and when she was actually home, which was rare, she was either berating us or beating us to the point of blisters, bruises, and welts. Life within our home was rough. As a result, we 7 children didn't spend much time at home. The others got into trouble, provoking gangs, experimenting with drugs, or throwing themselves into sports to get away as much as possible. Well, I didn't do any of those things. I made friends with every child I met. Their families welcomed me in, and I wandered from home to home until dark. Some of the elderly people in the tiny town seemed to take me in, telling me stories and teaching me the language, which was still somewhat common in those days. Some parents snuck me into council meetings, and though I was very young, 4 years old, I distinctly remember the council members smiling as they told the parents they couldn't have me there for fear of angering others, and the other children taking me down to a creek nearby to play. My time on the reservation is still a fond memory for me. I was taken care of and loved there. I was different, and they could easily have alienated me for it, but they did the opposite. All of us were poor. The town was dilapidated, and very few had a few of the comforts Americans usually enjoy. And yet it had everything I wanted as a young child. Adventure in the wilderness. I explored often, good people, excellent friends, and stories that set my imagination running. For many years, I thought I'd never seen or experienced a skinwalker. Now I realize I have. Only it didn't frighten me, as it did my brothers. It watched me. My brothers spoke of being threatened by peers with skinwalkers, just waiting for a reason to chase us off their land. One of the brothers came home late one night to find a coyote on its hind legs staring into our kitchen, its paw on the doorknob. He was crying when he told the story, shaking with fear. Well, I'd seen plenty of coyotes, but I'd never been scared of them. I didn't understand why it was cause for concern. I was far more frightened of the packs of stray dogs that ran around the town. They'd attack if you ran, and sometimes they'd follow you all the way home growling. To this day, I can't see a blue heeler without wanting to run. I do remember attending a fair coming through the town, or a school field trips. My teacher, who I loved, made me hold her hand for some reason. She wouldn't explain. I remember her talking to the aide about getting the children onto the bus before we were seen. A man painted gray and black came to the bus and started looking into the windows. My kindergartner teacher shoved me down under the seat, holding my head so I couldn't get up or peek. I still remember the other kids laughing, my teacher looking at me, and there was no humor in her face as she yelled at the man to leave. She looked frightened. Throughout these experiences, I still spent more time outside, unsupervised, than a child my age ever should have. And during that time, I noticed a gnarly-looking eagle everywhere I went. It was dark brown and large, with a wickedly curved beak and claws. To a child, it was almost daunting, but I began talking to it. Every time I saw it, it soared overhead or sitting atop a tree post or in a tree, I would pour out my little soul to this poor animal. I told it everything, my fears, what was happening at home, my school lessons, new Navajo words I'd learned, and things that I found funny. Once or twice I could have sworn I heard laughing in my head, echoing as if it came from somewhere far off. It cocked its head at me a few times, making me feel like maybe it understood. I still see it occasionally, and I smile and wave every time I do. I believe maybe I'm seeing a skinwalker, but it wasn't the bloodthirsty monster people described. That's kind of a beautiful story. I don't know. I hope it's true. That's awesome. It would be nice to think that there's maybe a huge misunderstanding about these skinwalker things. Like maybe they're not all just terrifyingly evil. I don't know. It's such a foreign thing, and it's my Western sensibilities that have the hardest time with it. Now I will tell you guys, I have an open mind about things, and doing the show, I've developed an even more open mind. Like when I started this, I thought I had the paranormal all sorted out. I thought I knew what this was. I thought I knew my place in it and what its place in the world was. But I got to tell you, I had no idea. I had no clue. And I've learned so much from all of you guys, from all the research, from hearing the stories and having conversations and discussions. And I don't know. Maybe there is redeeming qualities. Now remember last night, if you didn't watch last night, watch last night's show too, because we covered a story that had the history of the skinwalkers in it. And they were referred to as the Blessed Ones at one time until they became corrupted by evil, greed, power, etc., etc. But they were used to keep the Spanish at bay. During those years when the Spanish were conquering everything, the skinwalkers were the warriors. They were the ones that would go out and chase off these colonizers and stuff and keep them off of the Navajo land. And they said that's why there's never a mission on Navajo land. It's because of their use of the Blessed Ones. But then they got dark and became corrupted, according to the legend, and they became these creatures. So, I don't know. It's very, very, very weird. But maybe there's still some redemption or redeeming qualities in them, or in some of them, or something. I don't know. I'm just spitballing it. I don't know, folks. This is all brand new in a lot of ways. About the phenomena. We've all heard about the phenomena, but as we dive into it deeper and hear these stories, it really makes your wheels turn. It does to me anyway. I think this stuff is wildly interesting. Because again, these stories persist. I mean, these are newer stories. Again, they were sorted out from the internet, so you got to take that as you can, but some of them might be true. Some of these stories might be true. Maybe more of them are true than not true. We don't know. We assume that if it's on the internet, you can't trust it. And I don't know if it's quite that high a degree of people screwing around. I think there's some. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are using these, as moments to bare their soul. We certainly heard from many people calling in on the show or appearing as a guest on the show. And, they've been carrying this stuff around for 20, 30, 40 years. Like, oh my God, it feels so good to finally talk about it. Well, the same is true for people on story sites where you can submit your stories. They've been carrying it too. So maybe it's a very therapeutic thing for these people to lay these stories down and let people do with them as they will. I think they're really cool. All right, so how are we doing here? Yeah, we're doing good. Number 14 on the list. I've been waiting a relatively long time to post this just because I'm still freaked out by the fact that this actually happened. Rewind 2 weeks. It's the 4th of July. A few of my friends want to actually do something instead of just lounge in front of our computers like we do every day. And there were 5 of us, me, Neil, Elijah, JD, and Neil's sister, Katie. And Neil had the idea to go to his grandparents' house as they owned a farmhouse. Well, we live in Texas, so having that much space, essentially with other houses being a half mile out, was the perfect place to pop fireworks without getting into too much trouble. The drive from where we lived to this house is about a 40-mile drive. Unfortunately, the only car we had at our hands was a 2-door, so trying to fit 5 of us into one car was hectic, to say the least. The drive was actually tolerable. 3 of my friends in the back found a comfortable yet funny position to sit in the car. The music Katie was playing was helping a lot and definitely passed the time. We all bought some fireworks halfway there, and my friends jumped back into their designated position for another 20 miles. And as we got there, Neil forgot to mention that his grandparents were out of town for the week, which made the experience ahead of us even better. All of us got out of the car except for Katie, who suggested that she get us all food and sodas for the night. So she kept the fireworks in the back because she didn't want us popping any while she was gone. She drove off and all of us were left without fireworks. So we did the next best thing and went to the pool in the back. Something that already put me off was that the ranch sat considerably close to a forest. Neil even went the extra step to tell me that there's the occasional wolf that can be a hassle to deal with. Of course, I got nervous because I had nothing to defend myself with if one jumped over the fence. He handed me his pocket knife, a pocket knife against a wolf. Good luck with that. Saying there's a shotgun in the living room if something goes down. He mentioned he was going to set up a game of Risk for all of us to play while Katie was out, as the drive to the closest market was well over a couple miles out, so Elijah and I sat poolside telling stories to each other about stupid stuff that happened while we were in college. During our talk, I was staring out of the forest line, paranoid about the aforementioned wolves that Neil teased me about. I saw something move. I couldn't tell since the porch light behind me was making it harder to see any details, but the way it moved made my heart jump. Elijah could see my body language changed as I leaned in to see what was there. He started to ask me what I saw, and I replied with a wolf on the tree line. He looked towards where I pointed, and he calmed down. That's just Katie, dude. I think she's trying to scare us. He started calling her name, waving his arms, laughing, saying how she scared the hell out of me. Neil came out of the house wondering what Elijah was screaming about. And then he saw his sister standing in the field. He started to laugh when Elijah told him what had happened and how I was on the edge of my seat. JD came out of the house next, and Neil told him to help Katie with the bags and grab the fireworks. Katie, who was out in the field, started to wave back, and the wave definitely seemed out of place. It wasn't so much waving, but a sudden jerk, like if you were trying to pop your elbow. Elijah yelled for Katie to come back up so we could start the party, but JD came back with a terrified look on his face. Katie's not back yet. I just called her. She's still on the road towards Walmart. Their laughing stopped, and Elijah's face faded, and his arms fell onto his lap with a thud. Everyone looked at the still jerking figure in the field, and then she screamed. The scream was so loud it sounded like it may as well have been a couple of feet in front of us. All of us scramble, running back into the house, slamming the door behind us. Neil shouted for all of us to lock the doors and grab the shotgun in the living room. I ran to grab the shotgun as I was the closest to it, but while the other two ran to each of the doors leading outside. Quickly, I grabbed the shotgun and stuffed a couple of shells into my pocket, running back to the kitchen where we came in from, and handed the gun to Neil. I pulled out the shells and set them on the counter, and he loaded one in. JD came back, nearly covered in sweat, freaking out and shouting, "What in the hell was that?" Just as scared as he was, I look at both of them. Elijah quickly joining us again. "You don't think it was a skinwalker?" I read the stories, and I've seen them all over 4chan and in creepy pastas, and JD tried reassuring us, "No, it can't be. That was Katie. I'm sure she's just trying to scare us." "Cut the BS, JDs," Neil barked at him. "That scream wasn't human. You already called her. You already told us that she's still going out." He turned back to the door, pushing the blinds slightly to find that Katie was closer to us, and it stood at the gates of the pool, illuminated by the light and revealing to us something that didn't look much like Katie at all. The hair was a mess. The clothes looked tattered. Her skin was bruised. The one thing that caught our eye the most was her face. Her head was tilted like it struggled to support the weight. The eyes were blank with emotion, and the jaw was agape. It raised an arm, jerking like it did before in a mock wave. The jerking, however, started to get more violent, and the entire body started to shake uncontrollably. Neil quickly closed the curtains and backed off, and he ordered us to sit back behind the counter. He set himself in the gap leading to the kitchen, gun aimed at the door. It was silent for what felt like an hour, and the three of us continued to look at Neil, who was completely focused on the door, and a massive, grotesque smell entered our noses, and all of us reacted appropriately. The horrid stench was like if you left groceries to ferment in a box in the summer heat with a couple of carcasses as garnish. It was definitely hard to breathe. Tasting the smell in the back of your throat, even with your nose pinched. It was so bad, JD actually ended up throwing up. Then, without any warning, the smell was gone. The hot air that was the smell went away, and it was easier to breathe. I was afraid to let go of my nose, but was rewarded with a breath of fresh air, and everyone took a couple of breaths to get their lungs, get rid of the pungent smell that lingered beforehand. And Neil asked us if we were okay. And we all replied, JD being an exception, since he just puked. We heard what sounded like a whine. It sounded like a mix between a dog and a child about to cry. It wasn't coming from the porch, but the front, where we came in from the car, and all of us stood up, Neil moving forward while I stayed back. We knelt down by the stairs, still hearing this whining, and it didn't hit me until we positioned ourselves, but it sounded like something was trying to talk for the first time, like an animal. In a raspy, but still high-pitched voice, I could make out a very small portion of what it was trying to say. What? It says, Z Fuhark Hua. It kept repeating this until it started to sound more enunciated, more human. What the... I can't read that. What the F was that? It sounded like JD, same accent, same speech pattern, same voice. JD started to shiver. His breath was getting shallow. He shouted back in a scared voice I'd never heard come from his mouth until now, "Get out! Leave us alone! Get the hell out!" "Leave us alone! Get out!" The last words that we heard were in the same scream we heard when we saw it initially. It started to pound on the door. Not like it was trying to force itself in, but like an impatient knock. It started to scream in the same pitch we heard when we initially saw it. "Get out, get out, get out." It terrified all of us. The inhuman screams, the polite pounding on the door. I started crying. I thought this was it. Neil wasn't scared like us. He was right pissed. He stood up, storming towards the door, screaming. He swung open the door, pointing his shotgun at whatever was on the other side, pulling the trigger, filling all of our ears with the sound of a shotgun blast and the ringing to follow. And Neil stood at the door, huffing. His body language was wanting to rip this thing apart. I stood up, looking past his arm, seeing nothing but a shell on the ground. I looked up past his shoulders, seeing nothing but the driveway and the road leading back to where we came from. He turned around, the adrenaline fading away, and a shaky voice coming from his mouth. "We're not staying here. JD, call Katie and tell her to get ready to come back, to go back home when she comes back." The rest of the time, all of us were in the kitchen. The shotgun sat on the counter, the several shells near the butt of the gun. None of us wanted to say anything. None of us wanted to look at each other. It was nothing but silence until Katie called us. Neil quickly wrote a note, leaving it out on the gun as we left. All of us hopped into the car, silent. Katie noticed our behavior and constantly egged us to tell her what happened. She pouted and put music on her radio to cheer us up. The only thing I could hear was that blood-curdling scream, telling us to get out. That's horrifying. That's absolutely horrifying. Eesh. That's almost like zombie land kind of stuff. Eesh. Number 15. How are we doing for time? Oh. Actually, I think I'll save the rest for maybe Friday night. We'll go over it on tomorrow night's show. But yeah, that's pretty wild. I guess we can, let me see how long this one is. Yeah, we'll read this one. Number 15. I was told this story once. My dad isn't a BSer or a liar, so I know the story's true. So this is the very early 80s, and my sister, who lived in Toronto, came down to visit our parents for a weekend. She was staying at a friend's house who loaned her a car so she could come out, and after her visit, she left a little after 9 p.m., and she got maybe 7 to 8 miles away when the car broke down. Thankfully, she broke down in front of a friend of the family's house, and they let her in to call Dad, and Dad came out to get her. The family said she could leave the car in their driveway for the night, and my sister decided to just stay at my parents' for the night. It was now a little after 10 p.m. and pitch black, late November. While my sister and dad are driving back to the house, they pass through a heavily wooded area. Out of nowhere, they hear this incredibly loud, inhuman scream that was heard over the engine, them talking and the radio. Dad slammed on the brakes and they both started freaking out when suddenly a 6-foot-tall coyote, walking on 2 legs with a black and white striped tail, appeared on the side of the road and proceeded to walk in front of the car. As soon as it passed, the same scream played again, only this time 10 times louder. Dad slammed on the accelerator and they got the hell out of there. It was never seen again. What a power move, right? So that thing just had to say absolutely nothing and let them go pass, and it could have been unnoticed completely. But that was definitely something that wanted to be noticed. Yikes. How's that for creepy? It does. I wonder the same thing about Bigfoot stories, because it's like they're intelligent, right? But they will they will wait on a desolate road until a car comes. And then they're all about crossing, like, yeah, and I think it is. It's got to be a bit of a territorial pissing, so to speak. This is my woods. This is where I live. What are you doing here? It just seems like it has to be, right? Because they wouldn't have to do that. They could just sit tight, hunker down. The car goes by, done, out of sight, go. Nobody's any the wiser, but they love to be seen sometimes. Maybe it is the younger ones. I've talked to many people who would suggest that, and perhaps they're right. The younger ones kind of got an ego or a chip on the shoulder, so to speak. But very crazy. So, I don't know. It's anybody's guess. Thank you, Titan. Appreciate that. Whatever the case, it's the Paranormal Portal, ladies and gentlemen. And we have been talking about skinwalkers tonight. Hold on. Now we got to go through the trail cam terrors yet. So I hope you're ready, because we're going to dive into that right now. Right now. now that my gullet is cleared. Jeez. I love me some springtime air. All right. So this is going to be the trail cam terrors, folks. Hope you're ready to be terrified. Nah, this one's not real creepy tonight. It's an old one. It's been around for a long time. I don't know much about it. It's just literally a snippet that came with it, but I'll read you that. But it's been around. I know I've seen it for years and years. It's a strange picture, not really terrifying, but very strange. So let's check it out. All right, folks, welcome to the Trail Cam Terrors. Let's take a look at tonight's trail cam image that was captured quite some time ago. I don't even know if I have a date for this one, to be honest with you. But let's see what it says. First of all, I'm going to see what it says. All it says is that I assume that having deer hang out together like this all the time, but deer are skittish, and you'd think a little girl would scare them. Also, what's the deal with the little girl? That's it. That's all I got for this one. There's no background on it at all, but this is the image in question, folks. And it is a weird one. Again, could it be fakes? Every one of these could be fakes. So don't weight it on the evidence that it was a trail cam image and it couldn't possibly be fake, because it could be, unless you have the root image and can show that it's, not been altered. All these are as copies of copies of copies. So it's hard to tell, but if it's legitimate, and it could be, is that a human girl? Is it a spirit girl? What is going on? I don't know. Is this right next to somebody's yard? It could be a deer petting zoo for all we know. And they're just out feeding the deer after dark. I don't know. There's a lot of ideas of what it could be. And I'm not going to say, look, this is definitely paranormal. This is weird, but it is weird. You don't generally see children running around, and you don't generally see deer putting up with children running around them. Generally, deer are absolutely terrified of people and stay away for good reason. They usually end up in the menu if they stick around. So take it or leave it. But that's tonight's. It's not scary. It's just bizarre. And we've seen other one like this before, But that one was more translucent. There's no translucency to this child. It looks like the child is actually there. And but again, we have nothing for setting, nothing for background on it, and perhaps that's out there. Now, I will tell you, I don't spend a lot of time trying to sleuth these out. When I find them, I look at what I can find quickly, and if I can't find much, then I'll say, look, if you know more about these, let me know. So when you see these, if you know more of a backstory on what's going on here, or any more information that might explain what we're looking at, that's great. I'm all for it, because, I don't want to ever represent this stuff as absolutely paranormal, but it's not normal. So maybe it is paranormal just because of that. But anyway, that's tonight's Trail Cam Terrors. It's sad, that little girl. It does kind of seem sad. You're right, Magoo. I agree. It's kind of weird, and I don't know. Not scary, but I just locked my door. Yeah, well, maybe it is creepier than I think. I don't know. I mean, the little girl doesn't look like she's up to no good. She just looks like, oh, what's that light? Which would be weird. Her leg is tweaked. You're right. She's definitely, at the very least, she's pigeon-toed, but it could be more. It could be absolutely horrible. I guess I didn't really think about it, but it could be a horrible thing if it's a, image of a little girl lost. I hope not, Paul. That's terrifying to think of a little girl out in the woods all by herself. But at least the deer are putting up with her. Maybe they'll keep her safe. I don't know. There's a story that I did run across having to do with a girl that was abducted in one of the African countries. I think it was Uganda. And a pack of lions came and killed all of her kidnappers and protected her until authorities came. And I thought, oh my God, thank God. What a beautiful, divine intervention is that. So if there's a little girl out there in the woods, that breaks my heart, of course. Being a parent and being a normally adjusted person, I think anybody would take issue with the idea a child is out there suffering alone. But I hope that's not the case. But take it for what it is, I guess, folks. Hopefully Brent gets Lon Strickler for the portal. Yeah, well, Lon's a busy guy too. Lewis, he's got his own deal cooking. Maybe he'll have me on. Just saying. But anyway, that's the portal tonight, folks. And this has been the Trail Cam Terrors. So I hope you've enjoyed it all the same. Let's get this on. Wait a minute. Where is it? Why is that not popping up? What's going on? There it is. It's what you get when it's a one-man show, folks. All this high production value. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the journey tonight, folks. Thanks for joining me on this Night Terrors. This was a Skinwalker explosion, and we'll get into the last of those stories on tomorrow night, on tomorrow night's show. So I hope you'll join me then. And remember, if you're not already subscribed, please get subscribed. Please become a part of what we're doing here on the portal. We love always when new people join the ranks and become part of what we're doing. And please feel free to spread the word, to share these streams. That's the biggest way to help us out, is if you share these streams out on your social media. Help other people become acquainted with what we're doing here. So anyway, Brent, thanks. Great show. Thank you, Titan. I appreciate it bunches. So just let you know, you need new moderators. Oh, I like the ones I got, Waterboy, but thanks for your opinion. Your opinion means the world. I like the ones I got. So we'll stick with those. But anyway, I guess if you think you would make different choices for moderators, you should probably start a channel and get your own. But I appreciate that. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I don't know what's going on, but I'll look into it. My mods are also very even-handed and have never just blocked people for the sake of blocking. There must be more going on. I know that each and every one of my moderators love the show and represent it professionally, and I've never seen them misuse that at all. So, but I'll look into it. I'll look at the chat and see what happened. But all right, guys, that's all I got. Love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. Love you all, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Remember, check out Bigfoot today as soon as you can. I'm not sure if it'll be live tomorrow or if it's going to be pre-recorded and released later, but I will give you updates. Watch the social media, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio. I'll post any updates there. So at any rate, that's all I got for you folks. I'm out of gas. Good night and sweet dreams.